Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Stephen's come up with a real juicy one today, and I'm quite looking forward to getting my teeth stuck into this one. So, the episode is called Have Faith. And it may not jump to exactly what you are thinking of, but we'll cover all sorts of areas on that. But as it was Stephen's idea, I want him to sort of explain why he's brought this one up. So, have faith. What are we talking about here, Stephen?
Hey everyone, and hey Oliver. For me, this one's really hit me over the last sort of 8 weeks. I think a lot of that's due to, um, starting some new relationships. And one of the things it's really highlighted for me is that sometimes we don't have all the information that we need to start something or even make a decision or move forward. And to have faith is to have faith sometimes to start something. Now, faith could be having faith in the Lord, in God. Faith could be having faith in someone close to you. Faith could be having faith in a machine, a business, a situation. So for me, it's about making that first step sometimes and making a step in general when you haven't got all the information, but you have faith. I have faith in God, and I live my life through Him. I believe that He gives me the strength to um, do what I need to do, think the way I need to think, and accomplish the things that I accomplish. And I won't, that's me. But sometimes I need to have faith in someone else. And whether you call that not micromanaging, we could call it lots of different things. But sometimes you have to make a step, but you don't know whether it's the right step because you haven't got all the information. But sometimes you have to have faith. Um, we talk a lot about the universe, and definitely in lockdown, I strongly believe I gave to the universe and just kept on giving, and the universe 100% gave back to me. We can't, I can't kind of like give, I can't sort of say to you, and this was the reason why I know. But I know, I feel it, and sometimes having faith is a feeling. So, so that's where I'm coming from, and one of my values is actually faith, is to have faith.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think I think it's really powerful because it's not about what you believe in. That's an individual thing. And really important is regardless of what you think to what Stephen's just said or not, it's what he believes. So that's his belief. You cannot have any impact on what somebody else is believing. But how powerful is that? Because then you think about to yourself. Too many people are concerned about what other people believe, and for me, we've touched on religion. For something, it's not something that's really touched me, but it doesn't bother me that other people do, and it doesn't bother me that it hasn't sort of resonated for me. It doesn't make any difference because I know what I'm comfortable with. I know what works for me, and what works for you. I'm not going to judge you on that. It's about your beliefs. So the first thing is, don't be worrying about what other people put faith in. It's about what you need to put faith in, what works for you. Don't also be led by other people. Don't try to put faith in things that you're not comfortable with, or sort of whatever that might be. That'd be the first two things that would come out of it from my point of view. But absolutely, the whole thing about believing in something, because if you want to make steps forward, you're going to fall over from time to time. So we talked about earlier, and we decided not to call the episode of this podcast "Fear of Failure" because we felt that was too negative. But the reason for mentioning the terminology "fear of failure" is that's often what can stop people because they can't see where they're going, or they don't know why it's going to happen, or because something started to go a little bit, in their words, wrong. They either stop or don't even start something, or they won't take a step. But many of the great entrepreneurs, many of the great scientists in the world, many of the great discoveries in the world were made by people who just kept going. Every time they fell over, they just got back up again, learnt from the feedback life was throwing you, which is what a very much I can resonate with what you talk about with the universe. I do believe that you get feedback on a daily basis, some of it positive, some of it negative, but ultimately something that you can learn from. So I always use the terminology of there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. but you only truly fail when you don't listen to the feedback life gives you. And it gives it to you in spades every single day. So that thing that you think has gone wrong or hasn't worked or is broken, it isn't true. It just hasn't worked that way. So learn from it. What's the feedback that life's giving you? It's trying to show you something, tell you something. Now, however you've got to that conclusion doesn't matter. You've just got to take that information on board and then have faith that whatever happens, it will happen for a reason. And as long as you are deliberate in your actions and you do what you need to do, and that you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I did it, not I tried, but I did what I needed to do, you can't fail. You just learn. So that's where it comes from for me. When you talk about faith, that's what it alludes, it sort of brings up in my head, is this need to take action, to take steps, to believe that that's the right thing to do. And the only thing not to do is to just do nothing. That's the only time something's not going to work. So does that sort of complement what you said for you?
It does, Oliver, and one of the things you said there, it's about what the individual believes. I think we sometimes are swayed by not believing something because we think it's not the right thing to believe because it's not what someone else believes. And sometimes I know many people that are potentially sat on the fence or stayed in the same position because they don't feel confident to have faith to make the step, or they're waiting for some more information to make the step, or they're waiting for someone else to sort of push them. And I think sometimes you do have to step, not knowing whether it's the right decision or not. Because sometimes you don't know until you've made the step. But having that faith to do it gives you the power and allows you to know that sometimes the universe has got you. Sometimes, in my case, God has got me. In someone else's case, that belief might be in something else. That might be in Allah. That might be in Buddhism. You know, um, that might be in Seventh Day Adventist. That might be in Mormonship. Whatever that is. It's about having the belief in something that you can't always see, you can't always justify, you can't always draw it, you can't always say, that it's tangible. But I tell you what, you will have a feeling. And a lot of people listening to this podcast will go, do you know what? We talk about our gut sometimes, don't we? We talk about this feeling that we have. And so many people say, I went with my feeling and it worked because it was a feeling inside me. You can't quantify that feeling. You can't analyze that feeling, but you feel it. And, so part of this having faith sometimes is about having that feeling. And also, Oliver, this word we use quite a lot, community. And you can get a lot of faith from community. You can get a lot of faith from connectivity, from coming together. And, whether that's through sport, I know it's been big in our lives, you with your golf, me with my football and probably with my dancing and things, community is about doing things together collectively and having faith. When you play in a four ball sometimes and you might be playing Texas Scramble or whatever you're playing, you have to have faith in that group of people that you're all going to do your best. On a football pitch, when I've been part of a team, you have to have faith that the goalie is going to do his thing, the right back, the left back, the central midfielder, the defender's going to do their bit. Sometimes faith is a feeling, and having it sometimes means stepping forward in the dark. How many times have you stepped forward in the dark, and then it's not until your third or fourth step you see the light? But when you initially stepped, it was dark. But you didn't go, I'm not going to step. You had a belief in something, you had faith in something that you knew eventually you would see the light. And I think that's what we're talking about here. It's having that belief and having faith in something. But that's something for you, that's personal to you. I'm not saying for one moment everyone needs to do what I do, but I'm trying to articulate and explain that me having faith has enabled me to make some steps that if I didn't have that faith, I'd stay where I was. And there's a saying, isn't there? If you always do what you've always done, then don't be surprised if the outcome remains the same. So sometimes having faith gives you that opportunity, that extra bit of strength, that extra bit of insight to make the step.
Yeah, it's some really good ones there. I mean, I think about the golf analogy that you gave. Obviously, it's close to my heart, so I'm going to hit on that one. Then we talk about a four ball, and you maybe I play a lot of competitions with people, and you know what? Sometimes we've been lucky enough to win competitions, and so that's great. So I know that the people I'm playing with are never deliberately hitting a bad shot, and sometimes these shots are going to cause us some problems, and we're not going to get the result we want, because whenever you want to enter a competition, part of you wants to win it, because that's the whole design of competition. But it isn't the be all and end all. You also had some great time with these four people out on the course. But you also know no one, very rarely anyway, does anybody step up and deliberately make an error. So, and I think back to something else so close to my heart. So unfortunately for me, I'm a Norwich City supporter and season ticket holder. And I know Norwich is something that's quite close to your heart as well, Stephen. And the last couple of years, to be honest, have been pretty crap. But as we record this, the new season started. We're in the Championship. Was it season 23-24? And it started quite well. And you suddenly like, oh, there's that feeling. There's that feeling of, faith that they are trying, that they're not actually out there just to, for some reason, we had this belief for 2 years that the club's just been out there trying to screw us fans all over, and it doesn't want the same things we do, which is absolute nonsense. They just haven't got it right over a couple of years on the pitch. But they're never deliberately trying to upset us and annoy us. We just don't like their decisions. But that community is possibly, might get pelted for this, but not maybe the best supporter base that I've ever come across. We can be very up and down, but when things are good, we're a good bunch of supporters, and that sense of community at the moment is great. The conversation around the table is great. The conversation around the ground. There's a young lad who's coming to the side and he's doing really well, and everybody's talking positively about him. And it's really important to try and remember these times, because I'm sure it will go down again at some point, whether it's this season or another season. And I just wish we could remember the good times, because it's not all about success. It's about being part of something. It's about learning together. It's about falling over together and getting back up. And I think Norwich City is a perfect example of we're not so good at the falling over and getting back up bit together. And I wish we could be better, because it's far more enjoyable, regardless of the results on the pitch, when we're united and we're not all having arguments and things. And certainly sporting events are far better when you're with everybody, even if they don't perform as well as they could do, because they never mean to do it. So that idea of having faith that it will be okay, that it will work out, that there is some sort of purpose and outcome to that, I can absolutely buy into it. So I get to it from a completely different reason to you, but I can relate because I'm a vegan. And I have some really strong beliefs in that area, and I'm not going to get all on my soapbox about it now, but I know I will speak to people who don't share those beliefs. Unlike some people in my world, I don't use that as a foreground or as a platform to attack them from, though, because I just don't think that's ever going to get me anywhere. But I do feel quite strongly about it. But is there any point in sitting down with a meat eater, for example, and having a go at them? No. That they believe different things, it's a fact. So, and I'm comfortable with that. Now, I do think we could all do with thinking a little bit more about what other people think and what other people believe, and paying a lot more attention and respect to that. And whilst it's naturally human nature to be judgmental, you don't have to follow through with the judgment that's going on inside your head. You can challenge that thinking that's going on inside your head before you open this thing, and I'm holding my mouth now. You do not have to engage your mouth when you're having the judgment in your head. You could engage your brain again to think about what that means. And I feel when you bring up faith, I think that's what comes to my mind. From all different aspects of life, it's not about you. It's about what they think, what they believe in, and it's okay that they have differing beliefs to you. And I don't know if you agree, Stephen, but I feel my final point on this, I feel like it's become not okay to have different beliefs to other people in a lot of different forums. And I don't know if you feel as strongly as I do on that, but it's something that's really starting to get on my nerves, that there's this one way or the other way. Is there?
Yeah.
Is there? I'm not so sure. Does it is it as cut and blue, black and white as that? I don't think it is. If I look from a distance to things that go on in America, and I know we only see the media side of it, but there seems to be very divisive stuff going on over there, which is really hard to get my head around because I don't understand how you can be so aligned to one way or another way. There are many ways, and you can take bits and pieces from many different things that come out from many different environments. So try not to get too ranty about it, but I think actually when you talk about faith, it unpackages a whole load of other challenges, problems, and opportunities. So I'm going to zip it there and hand back to you, Stephen. Thoughts?
Yeah, you raise quite a few interesting points, and one of the points you raise is around the failure side. And what I want to say is, if if I feel that God loves me, or I feel that my daughter loves me, just because I haven't done something in the right way, or I failed at something, their love still remains the same. Okay. So what I want to try and get across to people is you will do things and you will fail and you will make mistakes and you won't get things right all the time. But that doesn't mean that God loses his love for you, or my daughter loses her love for me. It remains the same. And I think sometimes our fear of failure sometimes stops us for doing something, and we think that we will be judged for it, or we won't be loved the same, or we won't be thought of the same. So that's the first thing. And I think failure allows us to learn. Without it, you can't move forward. You need to be able to get things wrong so you can sense check them and think about, well, how will I do them differently? But that doesn't mean that the people around you stop loving you. And in my case, that doesn't mean that God stops loving me because I failed at something and I didn't get something right. And the second thing is it's okay to have a different view to someone else. It's okay to believe something different to someone else. No one has the right to tell you that what you believe in is not okay or not good. You have that own right. I think where it becomes difficult is if you believe what you believe and then you're forcing someone else to believe what you believe. That's a different scenario, because that's then you're putting your beliefs on someone else, and that's not always okay. I think through sharing stories, I think through good storytelling, I think through giving people more information, you could potentially get someone to believe, but it's not your God-given right to make someone believe something because you believe it. They need to take on the information and they need to come to their own conclusion in their own time. So, and that's the second thing that really draws them when you talk. And also, Oliver, we've become a world really that wants instant gratification and wants everything like yesterday. And unfortunately, sometimes faith and belief takes time. It takes time to read. Sometimes it takes time to have a conversation. Sometimes it takes more time to explore. It takes more time to open your mind to something different and something new. So this concept of faith and belief, sometimes it's not an instant thing. And I'll give you an example. So I went to the gym this morning and I worked out, and I'm looking pretty healthy at the moment and I'm eating really well. But that didn't happen from me going to the gym this morning. That's happened from me going back to the gym 8 years ago and changing my life 8 years ago. So my faith in that has come to fruition 8 years further on down the line. But it wasn't an instant thing. So this is the other thing about faith and about belief. It's not always instant.
Hmm.
Sometimes, I have to. I pray to the Lord, but it doesn't always instantly happen. Sometimes it will take time. Faith and belief takes time. So I think because of the world we live in, we're always looking at someone else. What are they doing? Should I be doing that? I'm not like that. Does that mean I'm wrong? And so forth and so forth. So I do think sometimes this instant gratification, is instant, holds us back sometimes from believing. And I'll finish with what I started with. Sometimes you have to step forward and have faith, not knowing what the outcome is going to be. And I know some people will really struggle with that, but sometimes you have to step into the darkness in order to see the light. The first few steps are going to be in the darkness, but you will eventually get to the light. But you've got to have faith to do that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really powerful one. It's a bit deeper than we normally go on these, but I feel it's a relevant point. Well, it's not. I feel it's a relevant point. It's massively relevant, and people need to sort of face up to it, really. And in whatever way that lands with you, start talking about it with people. Start thinking about it in your mind as well as about how you see others. I think that's really important as well. And just, I don't know, rein in the judgmentalness. We all do it. You're not a bad person for being judgmental. It's human instinct to be judgy. Anyone who says they're not judgmental is, I'm afraid, lying. However, it's how you then administer that judgmentalness in the real world, because hopefully you can use the filters in your brain before you engage what you want to say instinctively. Because even with your heart being in the right place, you can still offend people or get it wrong. So just think before commenting on stuff. I saw, as a final point for us, I saw some. I'm pretty much off social media now, but I still sponsor a fan channel called Talk Norwich City, and there's been two real crappy events. I won't go into details, where people have just opened their trap in the form of typing without thinking, and I've been really impressed with how the lads Jack and Chris Reeve have responded to it. But it doesn't change the fact that many people in different scenarios, said things they just didn't need to say and had no idea how harmful it was. They didn't mean to be as harmful as they ended up being. Now, the positives that came out were wonderful, but there's still these people who just act first without thinking about what they're doing, and that really needs to, well, ideally stop, but certainly needs to be reined in. So that's my 2 pennies worth on it. That's what sort of triggered me in this conversation. I'm conscious we've gone a little over our usual 20 minutes. So, Stephen, would you like to have just a quick final word before we
Yeah.
wrap up?
Yeah, my final word is step forward. Step forward, have faith, and whatever it is that you believe in, keep believing in it.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for listening, as usual. See you again at the next one.